And obviously a big cost of living item is rent. And rent comes down, the amount of rent someone can charge comes down to the amount of property it comes down to the supply and demand game. There's a lot of demand. We've had a fairly big growth in terms of immigration or Australians' population generally, largely driven by immigration, relative to the amount of properties that are available for rent. And landlords have probably paying higher interest rate anyway on their mortgages, so they've had to put the rent up because they could. There's a lot of people out there doing it tough when it comes to the rental. And it seems to be the only solution for that has to be more housing.
Correct.
Affordability is correlated to the amount of supply of property relative to the amount of demand for the property. And you did announce, or your government announced maybe a year or so ago, because I remember it was at the AFR Property Summit. I was one of the speakers, and they talked about I think it was 1.2 million new homes over a period of 5 years, I think.
Up to 2030.
Up to 2030. Okay, so it's not tracking great. What do you think about that? So, because what are you going to say to Australians who, are thinking about voting for Anthony Albanese or his party? What are you going to say to them in terms of where you think rents are going to go?
Well, we think that the latest figures show a much improved situation
in terms of supply.
With rents.
Rents. In other words, they're not galloping.
Compared with what was going on. Supply is the key.
Yeah, so I might just put that in context, Prime Minister. What you're saying is the rate of growth of rents is not growing at the same pace it has been growing over the past couple of years. But nonetheless, it has grown quite a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Relative to wages, for example.
Absolutely, and that's put pressure on people. That's why we've had the two increases of rent assistance in the last two budgets that have increased rent assistance by 45% is what we have done.
It's means tested, though, rent assistance.
Yes, it is. But for the most vulnerable, but that's why also we've got our $32 billion Homes for Australia plan. So this morning, two elements of that. This morning I was in Parramatta, announced $58 million of projects in New South Wales. It's about infrastructure that facilitates housing being built. So sewerage, transport corridors, energy connections as well. That will result or help for 25,000 additional homes to be built.
In other words, developers can see they should go and build more housing there because the infrastructure is there.
Because the infrastructure is there. But also we have had three major elements. One, increased funding for social and affordable housing. So our Housing Australia Future Fund today. I was also then after Parramatta, I was in Marrickville, 61 new homes, which are either social housing or affordable housing for essential workers being done by St George Community Housing. Amazing medium density development, real quality in places where there were 3 terrace houses. So you knock 3 over, you build 61. Chris Minns is doing, I think, a great job in addressing in a real way with people the honest truth, which is we need more density. That doesn't mean inappropriate development. It means quality development, medium density where it is appropriate. And this housing development I was at today is on Addison Road, Marrickville, across the road just about from the Vic on the Park Hotel, next to bus line. You can walk to a train line, close to all amenity. The people there were rapt. I met Lucy, who has 2 kids. She has suffered from having to move every year as a private renter. She now has the security of a roof over her head that is permanent. And she was just, her life had been changed by this. And that is important. But secondly as well, our build-to-rent schemes. It was delayed in the Senate. How do you give incentives to property developers to build private rentals? And we worked on that with the Property Council, with the master builders and others to make sure that we got that right. That passed the Senate finally, was held up over a period of time. So that's important. So social housing, private rentals, but also home ownership. Now, one element of that is getting interest rates down, getting inflation down. The other element is our Help to Buy scheme that will help 40,000 people through shared equity. So instead of, to put it simplistically, if you have a property that's worth $1 million, but some of that shared equity or ownership is owned by the government.
In other words, they put in 40%, you put in 6%.
Then you borrow. You have to borrow less. You just need a 2% deposit. And if you want, at either the government gets its return back when the property's sold, or you can buy back the government share if you're in a financial position to do so down the track. Now, that's operated really successfully in Western Australia since the 1970s. So we think there are a range of solutions to this. You can't click your fingers and solve it overnight. You've got to be honest with people. But that's why that infrastructure development's important, supporting home ownership's important, but also private and public rentals as well is absolutely critical. But it's all about supply, which is why we're working cooperatively with state and territory governments. So we've put a target for each of the state and territory governments, a pot of money at the end, an incentive. If they reach their targets, they get the share of the billions of dollars that we've put on the table from the Commonwealth.
Because Harry Triguboff was sitting right in that very chair only just before Christmas, launching his new book. A great guy, Harry, one of Australia's icons. And I said to Harry, like, how do we solve this problem? He just said, you got to talk to all governments, premiers, prime ministers and mayors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he said, we just need more property. And he said, we need more high rise. Yeah. He said, because we don't have enough land. You can't just keep building houses for people. We'd all love to have a house. Everyone wants a backyard. Everyone would love that. But like, given Australia's topography and geography, it's a difficult thing to do. We just got to have more density. And Harry is sort of somewhat exasperated in major cities like Sydney. He doesn't do anything in Melbourne. Not a lot in Brisbane anymore. But he loves the Gold Coast because there is a council there, a big council, that is pro-development. Is it frustrating as Prime Minister to have to navigate all the agendas at the other levels of government, which actually are the ones that ultimately improve things, you know, right down to the city council here in Sydney, for example. Yeah. It's, our mayor, city mayor gets voted in on a certain mandate and her electorate says we like what we currently got. We don't want any more. So she's got to do what the electorate says. But it may not necessarily be what you would like to see or what Chris Minns would like to see. Therefore, it's a bit like the interest rate discussion. You've got too many factors you've got to try and weigh up, too many people you've got to please. Is there a sort of a defect in our process in Australia that, unlike America, somebody just put out executive orders, the PM has to sort of play the game with every level. And it happened during COVID too.
Sure.
And it's happening right now with the problem with the anti-Semitism.
Sure.
You have to call, yesterday afternoon, you called everybody in. Let's have a national discussion about this. Yeah. Is that frustrating?
Look, if you were designing Australia again, I don't think you'd have 3 tiers of government. My ideal would be 2 tiers. Commonwealth government, national government and a regional government. But it is what it is. You have to deal with it. But you do get different responses as well. Years ago, there's a development in Marrickville right on the station called Revolution Apartments. It's in the old Marrickville RSL site. And I had a group of people come to see me and they were totally hostile to the development. And I said to them, what better location is there for medium density? It's I think it's probably 6 or 7 stories high, and they got additional apartments allowed by having some affordable housing development in there. Importantly, they don't need a car space for every flat because it's right on Marrickville Station.
So less cars.
It's right on Illawarra Road there. And they said to me, you have to represent our views.
As a local member.
As the local member. And I said, I disagree with you. I support this development. I support it as well. There's another side, a Mirvac development, which has won awards on the corner of Marrickville Road and Livingston Road.
One of our great developers.
For the library there, which has won, Australia's Best Building Awards. So you had, it was the old Marrickville Hospital site. You had appropriate development as it's on a hill. So as you go down, they got extra height. So it measures the same at the top, but it's higher the further down the hill you go. It's got some open space. It's got a community facility with a new fantastic library for Marrickville with a coffee shop underneath. It's an awesome development. Again, without being too party political, the Greens Party on the council have opposed any development. And what that will do as well is change the character of the area. My area is gentrifying, as inner areas are, and you need to have a mix, a social mix as well in terms of incomes. That's why today's development, I think, was so exciting, having 61 units, but some of them for local nurses, essential workers as well. You get that mix there. That's important. And I think that you can have courage from mayors. You've got courage from Chris Minns showing leadership in New South Wales as well. And I, as the national leader, support appropriate development. You look at Parramatta, where I was today, that has been transformed. Part of that is quite high density, but amazing living. You'll have the people there will have access to amazing restaurants, a heavy rail line, a light rail line, buses, and the new metro. They're next to Parramatta Stadium to go to events. They got the Riverside Theatre. Like, that community has been developed in a way that has just lifted up the livability of that city of Parramatta. And it's meant that big businesses, the ASX big businesses are locating there, and that's a good thing. That means jobs in that community as well.